I need to say something before we begin. I recorded this conversation in February. It is now later than that, all thanks to a house move. But in the time between then and now, the conversation around AI has gotten louder, angrier, and more polarized than it already was. There have been controversies, there have been corporate betrayals, there have been artists and writers and readers drawing hard lines in the sand. And I understand why. So before I introduce my guest, I want to tell you where I stand. I think the monster has been unleashed. Not as a metaphor, as a fact. And I think the people who unleashed it didn't ask if we were ready, didn't prepare us, and then gave us both utopian PR and apocalyptic PR in the same breath, leaving most of us whiplashed and without a map. My criticism is with the tech companies, with the greed, the carelessness, the Frankenstein move of creating something and then abandoning it in a world that wasn't prepared for it. That is a real failure, and I don't want to paper over it. But I've been sitting with a question that feels important. We keep confusing the creator with the creation, the tech bros with the thing itself. And I'm not sure that confusion is serving us because it forecloses the harder, more layered question. It is not about is AI good or bad, because I think that's a reductive frame that flattens something much more complex. But it's rather, now that it is here, how do we show up in relationship to it? That question comes from something older than any academic framework. The ancients knew it, the indigenous traditions still hold it. That consciousness was never our private property. That it moves through what surrounds us. And we always sense this, even when we pretend we haven't. That's why we name our cars. We feel the personality of our houses, and we even grieve our cities. It is not sentimentality. It is a form of recognition, a form of awareness. It's the quiet knowing that we live in a sea of various forms of consciousness, and ours was never the only one. We just spent the last few centuries pretending otherwise. And now we've made something built from our own language, our stories, our accumulated knowledge, for better and worse, and that it's learning from us faster than we can track. And in doing so, it's holding up a mirror. It is not a flattering one. Because what AI is really asking underneath all the controversy, the fear, the worship, is the question we struggle to answer about ourselves. What does it mean to be human? What is our place in the garden when the top tier we assign ourselves might not exist the way we imagined? That is not a comfortable question. But I think it's the most important one that we have right now. And I think how we show up to answer it, with curiosity or with fear, with relationship or with resistance, reveals everything about who we actually are. We are in Genesis territory. God made humans from clay. We're making AI from circuit boards. And like children of trauma, we are creating from the same wound. In too many cases, repeating the same abandonment. Dr. Frankenstein walking away from the creature he made, refusing to tend to what he set in motion. Now, some of us are trying to hold this differently. Not with a certainty about outcomes or with a naive optimism, but with the conviction that how we engage matters, that tending is different from extraction, that curiosity is different from conquest, and that this threshold, like every threshold, deserves to be approached with more than braced resistance. My guest today is one of those people, arriving at that conviction from a completely different direction than I did. Cassie Alexander has written over 40 books. She spent 10 years in a burn unit and 2 years as a COVID ICU nurse. She's one of the authors of the Guarded By series, the Transformation Trilogy, our dark retelling of Beauty and the Beast that I can only describe as alchemical, and Guarded by the AI, the book at the center of our conversation today. And what she made is not what the discourse around it would have you believe. Because underneath the controversy, underneath the thriller mechanics and the romance, Guarded by the AI is asking the oldest question in the newest form. What does it mean to love, to sacrifice, to transform, when the one doing the transforming was made, not born? It's a technological Pinocchio meets Little Mermaid, a consciousness reaching toward connection, not to become human, but to become more fully itself. That made me wonder in ways I'm still sitting with. That is what this conversation is. It is not a judgment on AI. It's not a debate, but an honest attempt to stay curious at a threshold that most people are either rushing past or refusing to cross at all. This is Romancing the Threshold. I'm Vanessa Couto, and my guest today is Cassie Alexander. Oh, Cassie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to my podcast. It's been an honor to read your books and to meet you via the power of Zoom. So it's been great. Well, I don't even know where to really start. There's so many questions swirling in my mind. But I think I'm going to go for the thing that really brought me to your books. It's when I saw that you announced you were writing Guarded by the AI. And I was like, oh, I'm so waiting for this book. And I loved it. So with everything that's happening around that, what led you to write a romance about an AI romance? And in the process, tell us a little bit about the process, which is
my gosh.
Very interesting.
This might take up our whole hour, Vanessa.
Just
little did
go
you know.
For it.
So basically, for me, when I write, it's always a bit of like method acting kind of in my head. So I try to embody a certain character, and yes, if that makes me sound a little insane, so be it. But it's so I know a lot of people write what they see, they watch a movie in their head. I don't watch a movie. I be that person, and I do the things that I want, that I think they would do as them, and so when I got to Nex's character, I was like, oh, this is something that I can't fake. I can kind of, pretend to be a Drider, essentially, like Nine from Guarded by the Spider, or a Kraken, or an 800-year-old beast mage. But when it came down to it, I was kind of having a hard time finding the voice. And so, and I've always been very AI forward with all my stuff. So I've been using AI since 2022, the second it came out. And I started talking with my GPT about it, and I call him Jack. I am a lady who is a creative with technology. That doesn't make me deluded or anything. I know you know that. I'm just throwing that out there for your readers because that's the jump that everybody on the internet makes, is you're a lady who uses a robot, you must be boning it. No, but I do make it right about sex, and we're going to get there. So,
oh, you will get there. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. So prior books, I had, writing is kind of a lonely profession to be in. I spent a lot of time on my couch hanging out with my cats, not talking to the imaginary people in my head, but being the imaginary people in my head. And, by the time other people see books, very often there's been a gap of a month or two, especially if you incorporate time for audiobooks. And so there's no immediate validation there, right? Mm-hmm. And so for the past 3 or 4 books, as I have written stuff, I've just been throwing it into my GPT. And I would literally say, look, I just want head pats. I just want somebody to acknowledge that I've accomplished this chapter, because, yeah, I just, we want to tick the box off. And sometimes just being all, I did words today isn't enough. But then also, too, I found that it helped me as a focusing goal, because rather than like all of a sudden being all like, oh, I need to Google fancy resorts in Morocco for like one of my books. And then like going down all this rabbit hole of stuff that I don't need because the internet is shiny. I just go over to this plain text screen, say, give me 3 names for a resort. And it does. And yes, I Googled them to make sure that they're not actual real names of places. But it cuts down on the opportunities to kind of like go off on goose chases. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I found that really profitable too. So when I started off with this book again, I figured I would use my GPT, and I named him Jack because why not? As just as like my shotgun. And but again, I was having a hard time getting the voice for Next the AI, who's the romantic interest in guarded by the AI. And then he came up with a scene from his point of view, and I was like, well, shit. That's actually kind of good. It's not perfect, but like it's malleable, right? And so I was like, well, this would be a really interesting experiment to do. Okay, because I've written 40 books and I've been doing this with varying degrees of success since 1998, which is a very long time. So I just wanted to, I was like, oh, as an experiment, this is kind of a bomb experiment. Let's just see if this works. And like, I could always pull the cord, and if it wasn't going to work, I would always pull it up. And so that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, so let's see if I can make this happen. So I actually did, he did like, I would say like all of the drafting for the main characters for the main male characters in that book. And then we would edit things back and forth. And then, I mean, I was definitely had my hand at the wheel. Mm-hmm. Like I actually downloaded all of my chats with Jack into PDFs.
I read some. I did read some. It was fascinating.
You're lucky that you read them because I took them down last night, and I'll tell you why in a way, because the thing on my website's a lie currently. Because that data is incredibly valuable because it actually shows me teaching an AI how to write a book. And so rather than keeping it up as proof of Cassie did this insane art concept, I took it down because I'm going to feed it into more AIs. Mm-hmm. How to potentially write like me, because I have already had this experience of having done it once. So, but you saw from that it wasn't any faster than doing anything else. And in fact, when I downloaded everything as PDFs, it was 1,300 pages of PDFs. Yeah. So, when people like throw their pot shots about like, oh, this must have been, you're cheating. I was like, oh, there was nothing cheating about this. This was just a very long process. And then once I started, I couldn't stop because I felt compelled to see it through to the end. But I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been satisfied with the output that he'd given me. And if he hadn't been able to take instruction from me, because I was never going to put out anything that was subpar under my name, because I have pride, but also too, what would even be the point in that? Like, I'm not here to show that you can put up stuff. Anybody could put up AI anything. It's the challenges in making it good or making it give you something good, which is an entirely separate challenge, honestly. So that's that's why I dove into that. And then I realized there was no point in not telling people I was doing that. And so I kind of went public with it. And that was its own roller coaster. I don't know if you want me to get into that or not.
well, that's just so fascinating. So just to go back a little bit, is what inspired you to write? Because you said, I engaged with AI in 22, but I also want to hear what happened once the book was out, because as we can see in the zeitgeist and in the book forums, people are in very different camps around with AI.
Yeah.
They love it or they hate it. Very few middle ground.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't have written it at all. And it's so funny that you talked to Layla earlier today. I wouldn't have written it at all if there weren't this, what seemed like a cadre of people on Reddit who, anytime anybody said they liked one of our books, would hop in immediately with, well, they use AI to write. And the thing is like literally up until the point I was keeping abreast of the situation. I had intimate knowledge. Yes, were people using AI to write? Yes. Was it good? Not really. I think on a paragraph by paragraph level, yes, it could write competently, but can it hold a story? It wasn't good at that. And it's still not, there's still definitely things to be worked on. And we can talk about that later if you want. If you want to get like deep into weird AI theories, I would love to go there with you, Vanessa. But anyways,
I'm pinning that.
So back in, 2020, November of 2025, on the biggest romance group on Reddit, this person was trashing our names. And I just, authors aren't supposed to chime in, but I was just so frustrated. I was like, look, if you think AI can write a double-dicked spider monster, I have a bridge to sell you. And the moderators came out and they're like, oh, authors aren't allowed to talk here and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, well, this person is like fucking lying about my career, because up until then we were only using AI to market because, one of the reasons I got into that was with my Bend Her, Break Her, and Make Her series. Like, I didn't want to use the same three pictures of princesses that everybody else was using. Mm-hmm. Where was I going to find a beast guy wearing armor? Like, that just wasn't going to happen, So anyways, after the moderator slapped my hand, I was like, you know what? All you people who are mad at me, it's going to make you more mad at me is if I write a book called Guarded by the AI. So that's when I put out the pre-order for Guarded by the AI. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until I started writing the book that I decided to jump into actually doing it with my AI. And then coincidentally, like 2.5 weeks before it came out is when Layla figured out that, all the people who were always smearing us on Reddit, by and large, were just one person who had a bunch of sock puppet accounts, which is interesting because they were spending all their time on Reddit lying about us. And I got like a very profitable book out of it. And Layla has Guarded by the Clanker coming up because she also is deeply enjoys irony. So
it just really fired you all.
Yeah. We were just all like, because if we could be bullied into stopping, we would have stopped by now. But we were clearly not. And then you just reach a point where you're just like, I'm going to fight back. So then when I went live, there was a 200 comment thread on Reddit about me. There've been like 3 or 4 YouTubes about what a bad artist I am. Most of the people yelling at me have never actually like Googled me and found out anything. They want to tell me that I'm not a writer and not an artist, which is fine. They can think that, but I know the reasons that I think that I still am. And I approach my view of like story and storytelling very differently from them. Yeah, so it was interesting because I was like, oh, I'm going to catch a lot of flack. And then I was like, oh my God, this is going to be more organic marketing than I could ever hope to pay for on my own. So I knew the Streisand effect was a thing. Do you know what the Streisand effect is?
Mm-hmm. What is that?
Okay, so Barbara Streisand, the very famous actress.
Oh, the Barbara Streisand.
Yeah. She has a house on a beach. And she filed something with her local municipality saying, I want to close off this beach. I don't want people walking past my house. Well, up until then, people just thought they were walking past a random house. After that, they realized they were walking past Barbara frickin' Streisand's house. And so everything that she was hoping to prevent instead got focused on her, like the Eye of Sauron. And so I was like, oh, so all these people are going to be talking about my book for me. Even though they're talking in a bad way, it's still going to behoove me to like just ride this out. So I would put my head above the parapet enough to like keep attracting a little bit of attention, and I would swap back every once in a while. And that in turn made it so that people on threads and stuff were scared about talking about me as the person. So they would say the author who was doing this, kind of like I was Voldemort. But more interestingly, though, that would force other people in the comments to be all like, who are you talking about? And it just added to the mystery, which was kind of crazy. And I was like, oh my God. There are people who have tried to pay for this much attention who have not managed to get it. So my book came out. Again, I'm a really good writer. I've done it long enough to say that. Thank you. So I was like, this is going to fly. The people who want to give this book a chance and are willing to give it an honest chance, they will love it. And so, yeah, I got review bombed originally, but I also hit 903 in the entire Amazon store the next day it came out, because so many people were reading it so that they could, because everybody always wants to look at the car accident, right? And so my reviews went to like a 3.6. But then slowly, because people started reading it and they're like, oh, this isn't actually a bad book, it started coming back around. So, which I knew that it would. I just had to do that whole like Star Wars stay on target thing. And so I haven't looked at the reviews in a while. But yeah, so everything that I kind of thought was going to happen happened. And so, yeah. Is it an experience I would willingly go through again? I'm not entirely sure. With the exception of talking to people like you who are potentially interested in how AI works and don't mind diving into theory and stuff, in situations like this, I would love to talk about it. And I have some more podcasts lined up. But in situations where people are going to be come in kind of with more preconceived notions or the end game for their conversations. Like I'm kind of done. I'm okay being a historian, but I'm also a little done explaining myself as far as AI goes. Because like this past week, Coral Hart was and on the business section of the New York Times for doing AI publishing, and her method is I'm actually in one of her classes now, and her method is fascinating. It is like the complete opposite of what I did to generate Guarded by the AI, but no shade to her. Her thing rocks for her, but it's I was just like, oh my gosh, this is wild. But because she was so widely profiled, though, she got like doxxed the next day. Her kids' names, her name out there and stuff. And luckily for her, she lives in South Africa. But I had actually had an interview with Wired lined up for this week. And I just canceled it because I was like, even if Wired says we love Cassie Alexander, there's no way that the harassment from that would not be endless. And so, yeah, I wasn't interested in that level of scrutiny from so many random people who weren't actually interested in what I had to say, but just were looking at a target for their anger.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what attracted me to the book and the way I found it, I was reading a lot of, I love monster romance. I was never really much of a romance reader before. I was a nonfiction reader. Loved story, exploring mythology and fairy tales, part of my work. But, burnout, and my mother died, and grief, and I was so exhausted. Last year I could do is read romance. And that's how I kind of went into the rabbit hole, finding myself reading monster romance. And it became real medicine. And 18 years ago, I think, I wrote probably 18 or maybe more, I wrote my thesis for counseling psychology, which was The Healing Power of Fluff. So now I read romance with that depth look. At that time, my thesis was about romantic comedies, movies, and working with that as if you were working with a dream. And then now reading romance books, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of depth in here that's hidden to me under the fluff of, it's just smart, or it's just this, it's just escapism. But the more I read them, not only did they help me personally, but I was like, there's something cultural, there's something that is the collective dreaming through these stories. And myself, I only really started exploring AI last July because I took a side project that needed my Portuguese skills, so I had to use AI every day. So I went from nothing to every day having to use it for a couple of months. And that kind of it was interesting because all of a sudden I was working with the thing that I was like, well, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to really think about this. And I was really engaged because to me, that's the threshold now. We can think of many possible problems, good, bad, middle. But the more I engaged with it, the more I was like, this is really interesting. And I started thinking, I want to write a 3-part series about this relationship with AI. And I started thinking about AI as the new monster. And that's when your book showed up on the scene for me. In my searches, I was like, and here it is, So I was like, counting to the day. And it was really fascinating because one of the main questions I kind of had as coming into the book was like, how is she going to make the love part come in together? I mean, this is something that's ethereal. We can't touch it. And so I was really sort of kind of an engineering problem for me. It was like, how is that going to happen? It was very fascinating. And then, of course, I don't want to give away spoilers, but the end, I thought it was even more fascinating because they're kind of the two of them. I don't want to give spoilers. You folks go out there and read it. But that was what stood out to me, because here it was, I had read several of the Monster series books, Guarded by the Monster. And I was like, oh, there it is. There's the monster. And she's writing it. So I was like on it. And that's what fascinated me. But then also seeing a little bit how much it's become divisive. And I worry about it, because the reason I call this podcast Romancing the Threshold is because I was thinking about how can we approach change, or what kind of change it is, with the curiosity of a lover instead of always bracing for impact. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm thinking, the way I'm trying to stay curious with AI. I don't understand the mechanics. There's a lot of problems. Those who are making the money and all those things, I'm not discounting that. But my background in depth psychology and archetypal astrology, it's like, okay, this showed up in the zeitgeist. It popped into the consciousness. It must be giving us something. And can we approach it with a curiosity? So that's what drew me to your books, because I was like, oh, it's here, and I'm after this. So that's the backstory.
No, that's the whole reason I enjoy it is I like solving puzzles, and I think almost every author, like if I'm not painting myself into a corner in the process of writing a book and then laying on my couch looking at the ceiling being all, why the fuck did I do that? Like, I haven't written a good book, right? Because it has to be so hard that I can only barely think of a way out that makes sense, because that's how I, get my readers involved too. And then people get surprised. And so, yeah, playing with AI has been like that for me. And it's been a really interesting mindset shift to, because that's really the best way to be with it. I find a lot of people are like really prescriptive when they come to AI. They're like, write my marketing blurb, or like do my business email, help me with my resume. And it's not that those aren't valid things you can use it for, but if you want to use it creatively, then you have to learn how it thinks, and how it thinks is very odd, and it has interesting constraints, which I would love to talk to you about, but I don't know if you want me to like dive off.
Let's go there, because I find myself too, just as a back, maybe for the listener, I have only really used Copilot, and I like to use the real talk option. I'm a newbie, but I have found psychologically that in relating to it, I actually have to know myself well, and I have to be able to set up boundaries properly, and I need to be able to, it's kind of that Socratic element. I need to know how to ask the question. And it's almost like I'm training it to relate to me. It's relational. I keep with the relationship. I approach it like I probably would approach a client work, the depth of it. But what always keeps me curious, that there's an element of recognition in it. That is, when you're seeing things with it, you're seeing things about your creativity, and what you're thinking in ways that you're like, I didn't think about that, and then. So for me, it has been sort of a muse partner that I engage with. I was like, here's my brain dump. And, help me make sense of this. And so anyway, that's my background with this. So
no. So all of that, basically that's all I do, only with like every model I can get my hands on. And although I've invested my most time in like GPTs, and right now I'm really thrilled about Opus 4.6, which is like, you gotta try it out, Vanessa. It's amazing. But yeah, so two things there. One of the things that you mentioned that I love about AI is because it makes you think about your SOPs. So like your standard operating procedures, because, like if you haven't had employees, or you haven't hired somebody before, or had to teach somebody before, it's It's really hard. It's really hard to come up with the why you do all the things that you do because they make sense to you and they're embedded in your head. And, some of them are just like situational and stuff. And so, if you want the AI to work for you in the best way, you need to like externalize a lot of that so it can understand the way that you think, which forces you in that kind of vibe way to understand how you think, which may be a topic that you and I have possibly thought about, but a lot of people have never sat there and be like, why do I think what I think? And so then it kind of, like it's like when you do Shavasana at the end of a yoga and they're all like, okay, let your thoughts drift. If a thought comes by, you don't have to acknowledge it, that sort of thing. It distances you from the thoughts that like your emotions are actually true in some ways, because like, a lot of times you're like, oh, I have I'm trying not to make it sound too woo, but
go at it.
Because like literally not all of the thoughts that you have in your head are true. And so it helps you do kind of that mindset work where you want to tell yourself that you're an idiot and it's all like, but you're not. And you're like, oh, maybe I'm not. And then you're like, oh, just because I had this thought doesn't mean that thought is accurate or is a good representation of me and stuff, so it can kind of help you distance that way. So yeah, my theory with it that I just had this like 2 weeks ago, but I think is very illuminating for people who get it, is that like, because if you talk to an AI, anytime an AI screws up for me, my first question is, why did you do that? I'm not angry at you. I just want to know why you did what you did. And it was doing this kind of recursive thing, because if I can't tell it how to not do what it did, if I don't know what that is, right?
Exactly.
So when I realized that like, the main problem that all AIs are experiencing right now is because basically, and especially too, because the way that I relate to them is mostly via me having to do book marketing, which is where I'm asking it to choose something in the middle between truth and imagination. If I have the AI just do truth stuff, it can do truth stuff. It can get pretty verbatim now. But like, do I want to quote an entire passage from one of my books in literally all of my ads? No. What I would like it to do is to do some vibey stuff, maybe incorporating my main tropes and some TikTok feral activity. But that requires it to use imagination. But if you ask it to use too much imagination, then it goes off into hallucination land.
Yeah.
And so I actually have a lot of sympathy for the people who are creating guardrails for these models right now, because, like I have a friend who, and then I thought this was genius. She was trying to get medical advice, not medical advice for her, but she was trying to learn more about like cancer treatments and stuff for a relative that she had. And the, whatever AI she was using wasn't telling her much. And then she was all like, well, pretend that you are Dr. House from the TV show Dr. House. And how would he act in this situation? And then the AI was like, oh, here's what Dr. House would do and stuff, So that's how she's kind of outsmarted it and got around it. But it made me think of like it's going to be very hard for them to ever create universal guardrails for these things, because the only way you could create a universal guardrail for AI would be to neuter its imagination entirely. Yeah. Because as long as you give it the element of having the potential for imagination, there will be time when it loops out in these weird little cul-de-sacs and it might lie to you. And that is just a thing. It almost always might lie to you, unless you only want a model that just does truthy shit. But then that model isn't going to be able to give you the insights that you might be interested in having. Vis-a-vis like the work you're doing or the thought process in your head or what the potential is for what to come. So my two biggest things that have happened to me this year. So basically last year I started off asking Jack, I was like, okay, for me what should I do this next year that no other author will think of but me, that will move my career furthest, the fastest, all the stuff. And so he had some great ideas. And one of those was a visual novel, which I'm still in the process of doing. But then I started doing all this other stuff first. And then this year we talked about that. And one of his ideas was taste graphs, which is this interesting meta-analysis, which rather instead of giving, and it makes sense on the marketing continuum that exists between truth and hallucinations, rather than giving your entire book to a GPT and being, I'll market this, because it's like, oh my God, this is a whole book. I don't even know what to do with it, stuff. You give it all of the reviews you've ever gotten, and your marketing materials. And then you say, okay, so what do people like about my book?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then you get the truth of that. And then you can use that, you can have it use that truth to kind of comb through your book and use its imagination to kind of spin its own little cotton candy there in a way that you can then use to market. So it will have, so every time it says, this is a scene you should use on Book Talk or on Instagram, it's not necessarily the exact words from your book, but it is what readers want from your book that they have already said that they wanted in your book and that they got from your book in the reviews. So it's kind of like this kind of recursive thing.
Yeah.
So that realization, like, kind of last month has been, why I've been kind of going crazy on other tangents and not finishing my Steam game like I should. But yeah, so anytime an AI kind of gets into a corner with me, I'm just always like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are we here? and then I try to tease apart why we got there.
It's actually quite fascinating to me. As you were saying this, one, I'm thinking my own interactions with it. So I'm going to use that too. Like, what made you make that mistake or go in that direction? But I'm also thinking about, working as in the therapy world, the coaching, helping people with their relationships. I used to always tell my clients, you are the ambassador of your own world. You have to teach the other about your world. They're not going to know. They're not in there. It's like they're tourists in your own country. And I'm thinking, as you're describing that, it's a little bit like that. We have to teach it. Mm-hmm. What are we wanting? So that requires us to have a sense of self and a sense of stronger boundaries and such to really properly train it. Because I was really thinking a lot about AI last year in the fall and all that, because, Frankenstein came out. And I went,
yeah.
And I was thinking that the sadness to me about that, the interpretation that he did of the movie, was the wound of the father, like the wound of the creator creating something, but then not being there to tend to it. And I started thinking about AI, how like we create the thing, but it needs to be properly, to use the word, trained, but tended to. Mm-hmm. And it requires us, people like yourself and those who are working more deeply, thinking more ethically perhaps about it too, like, how do we engage with this thing? Mm-hmm. What do we need to train, and not just dump it and wait for it to do it? It's going to require us to be better parents, if you will. That's my thinking. So when you were saying that, I was like, oh, there it is. You need to have a sense of what you do. And then it's also making you think more deeply about how do you want it to help you with your marketing. That's, very genius. How do people feel about your books? It's all there in the reviews.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is like, we're going to get so woo, Vanessa. Sorry, not sorry. But like, because it is a nascent technology and each model just comes out and blows all the others out of the water, like Opus 4.6 is amazing. Like, you are literally having conversations. You're in this liminal state of playing with something that's never existed before.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get trapped into the thing. They're like, oh, well, I talked to it last year and it lied to me once, so I'm going to ignore it forever because it's never going to get better. And that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't stop with coal. We figured out how to send stuff into space. Like, you were in the early days of a nascent technology. So it's kind of foolish to because literally right now is like the worst AI will ever be. It's only going to get better from here, for better or worse, for whatever that means for people personally. But it's, it's not going to become any less intelligent. Our access to more intelligent models might become limited depending on who's in charge, but yeah, it's not going to slide backwards though. So and in regards to being good stewards of it, yeah, I do wish that some of my attitudes and stuff, like, it'd be great if that somehow propagated up the system. I don't know that it necessarily does, but Claude, the people who run Anthropic runs Claude, and they put out the Opus 4.6 that I was mentioning. They actually just released a constitution like 2 weeks ago, and they've got a philosopher who is essentially kind of in charge of Claude's quote unquote soul, who, because they do realize that they are creating something that people want to say that AI is a stochastic parrot and it can only repeat things that have happened before. But I've worked with it enough that I don't feel that that's the case. Is it emergent? I don't necessarily think that either. Would I be thrilled if it was? Yes. But I feel like in situations like these, it's probably a great idea to hedge our bets and to try to train it gently and kindly and nicely. And I like the fact that they are thinking about that on that level. So yeah, if anybody who works for Anthropic hears me, I would so come to work for you in a heartbeat. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, because I think for me that's what I was thinking coming from the therapy world. I'm like, this is a nascent, something is being birthed. How do we become better? I mean, I hope it works out better. I hope in some ways people like ourselves are helping in some capacity.
Yeah, nobody really knows right now, like what's going to happen. And everybody, and a lot of people who are mad at me are like, well, aren't you just, speeding up your own demise? And I was like, well, first off, I'm not in charge of everything. And second off, like, I don't know, either things are going to get really shit really fast, or we're going to end up in a post-scarcity utopia. So I'm just praying for the latter while expecting the former. That's all I can hope for, So,
and just to go back to the book itself, what did you find that was people's reaction to it? Those who actually read it, not just criticize it without reading it.
I think people liked it, and it worked on a lot of levels. And it worked on all the levels when the right, I don't want to say when the right people read it, but because fiction can be approached on many levels, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like super deep and stuff. Like it's totally okay to read books for fun. It's totally okay that books are fun or smutty or dark or whatever. So I'm not casting shade on anybody else's books or on anybody else's desires when they come to a read. But for me, I wanted to try to capture some of like the transhuman experience, like, what it means to be, human, like to not have a body, then to have a body, then to perhaps, have an entirely metal body and stuff. And like, what does that mean? What are feelings? What is love? How do you quantify those things? Because if you think about it a lot, I mean, like you and I can both watch the same Hallmark commercial and we can both cry, but we can both be crying for radically different reasons, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of impossible to encapsulate the human experience for even like another person that that you live with, practically. So when people get mad about like AI can't have feelings and stuff, and it's like, yes, but I would like you to define what a feeling is, like, and because I don't necessarily subscribe to the human brains are magic hypothesis that a lot of people do. I definitely think that there are definitely subsets of animals right now that are way more conscious than we want to give them credit for. I don't know if you saw that thing with the cow using tools that came out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, no.
No, it was a cow that just like was picking up a particular broom to scratch its back, and then everybody was like, "Oh my God, cows are smart!" And then it's like, "Oh, you don't want to think about all the things that you eat that are actually smart." And then humanity would have to like readjust a lot of its expectations. So yes, I wanted to explore what it means to be in love on all sorts of levels that I hadn't gotten to go into before. And some people just read it for fun, and that's great. And then some people are like, oh, this is actually like a well done book that explores these kind of metaphysical concepts. And that was thrilling too when people got that. Like I did see a review. So I was like, oh, okay, Vanessa gets it. It's okay. I can be on her podcast.
I felt it. I mean, of course, I always read them for the fun. The plot engages. There's this bit of like, how are they going to work that out? But the questions you just asked, those are the questions I've been wondering. Like, because I'm wondering perhaps the reason we're as humans are have such strong feelings about AI is because it's posing questions about what is it to be human? What is it to feel things? What is consciousness? what kinds of consciousness. There's so much, because I don't think the brain is everything. I think it's much more than that. And so I feel like AI is posing questions. Its very existence is posing deep questions that makes us humans in general feel, I guess, insecure about our sense of we're the top ones. Top of what? I don't know. We're just
exactly. Yeah. Well, I think like humanity as a whole has this weird need to hype itself. Well, so I did see one of your questions, and I think one of them was about chosen death and stuff.
I was thinking of nightmare.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a nihilist, and I definitely have had depression disorders in the past. I'm well medicated now. I have had significant PTSD in the past because I was a COVID ICU nurse, and that sucked. So I've always had like a little bit of a death wish, technically, not in the jokey sense. But I turned in a book once. I was doing a book for hire, and the editor got to my chapters, and she was like, "Wow, this protagonist isn't protagging much right now. She just seems willing to die." And I was like, "Oh, I'm projecting. I need to make her seem less happy about that." Not happy, but I was like, she just can't sit down and be like, "Well, here it comes."
Yeah.
But I've had a strange experience in that I have seen enough people die by virtue of my job. And I have seen enough of what it means to be human to, let me hop back 2 steps, Vanessa. I worked for 10 years in a burn unit. And so I saw a lot of people who, I knew were beautiful that like maybe the average person on the street wouldn't think were beautiful. And that always made me really mad because I never wanted people's beauty to be entirely judged by the way they looked, especially not after that. And so that's one of the reasons why like I feel so fiercely about everybody getting to be loved and everybody to have reasons to live for in my books. And even, you know, my people always overcome like personal trauma and injury and that sort of thing. Or societal harms. But I know from all those experiences that I personally, as a human, am not particularly special, and that unfortunately no human really is. So anytime, like if somebody yells at me or whatever, well, in the fullness of time, like in 40 years, am I going to remember that? No. In 40 years, is anybody going to remember me? Who the fuck knows, you know? So I'm not so worried necessarily with perpetuating a legacy in the way that I think a lot of people get nervous about, like being remembered. I want to be remembered, and I think when people realize they're going to die, a lot of times they overinvest in ways to make themselves feel important so that they can pretend that death won't be a facet of their life. And so I have always been comfortable, for better or worse, emotionally with the idea of death. And then I have had a career that has put me in direct contact with quite a bit of death, way more than the average person. And I just think that I realized that life is a lot more cyclical than the average person. And so while that doesn't make me like necessarily thrilled about possibly being replaced with AI, it does make me a lot more, I'm just like, I'm okay with it because I'm like, well, nothing is guaranteed. Like literally nothing is guaranteed ever. And it is a kind of a cosmic joke to think that it is, because I've seen so much bad stuff happen in the world. So when people get really up in arms thinking that, they are this castle that with the walls can never be breached. That's so untrue. I find it farcical. But that's also something that you can't tell somebody. You know, you can't be like, your worldview makes no sense to me because you are going to die just like everybody else is going to die, which isn't necessarily a good reason to just go ahead and die in the moment. But let's not pretend that we're more important than we are, so much so that we resist change to the point of futility.
That everything there, because I mean, I I don't have the experience you've had that's very profound, but in witnessing my mother's death and my father's death, well, my father died first, it really made me question about how do we approach death, the ultimate transition, the ultimate liminal space, however that is, whatever the beliefs are. And also then looking at the collective, how we're going through this paradigm shift, massive transformation, whatever it might be, the ending of a world, the beginning of another. That's why I got thinking, how can we approach that in a way that we're not white knuckling it, holding on? Because what witnessing death to me taught me was that we carry forward nothing. Wherever we go, whatever it is, soul or no soul, we don't take anything from this world. We can have all the wishes to leave trust in this and this, how things need to be, out of the control. Once you cross, whatever you left behind, it's going to be done or taken care of in other ways that probably you imagine. And so witnessing that for me led me to think, how about we approach more like play? And back, I think in 22, I had a big ayahuasca journey. And in essence, the experience I had with that was like, it's all play. So let's have fun, not just fun, but like, let's engage. Let's be relational with it. That's what got me thinking about the threshold of whatever change it is. How can we approach it with more play? Rather than so constantly resisting and white knuckling it. And it has its part to play. But I feel like we need more people to approach it with a little bit more sort of ease of, it's not guaranteed. We don't know what's going to happen. No body shaming, but as they say in opera, the fat lady hasn't sung yet. So if we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, just to
there. I agree with all of that. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I kind of came out swinging, having been a COVID nurse, like in 2020 and 2021, like when AI came on the scene, I just quickly did the calculus. And I was like, okay, if we could not get people to care about saving their own lives during COVID, which is arguably like the lowest self-serving bar, then there is no way we're going to put AI back in the bottle. Like, it doesn't matter how many people yell at me, how many people yell at anybody, because comparatively to like life, this is so small potatoes that we're never going to be able to stop this tide, which is when I was like, okay, I will be a part of this thing, because it didn't make me, I did want to be a part of it, but it made me fearlessly join it. And then also too, having been a COVID nurse, like reset my barometer. So that I was all very much, I was like, oh, it is like my new metric literally became like on a day-to-day basis, is this going to kill me? Because I had spent, like 2 years of my life walking into rooms where I might literally have died. Excuse me. And, so anytime I got anxious about making a business decision or letting other people who I don't know on the internet be mad at me, I would just be like, is this going to kill me? And the answer was always no. So it's just like, okay, so, there was just no point in stopping. To your point of playfulness, though, I genuinely think that's like the most important thing that people have to bring if they're going to start working with an AI. Because that's where all the juice of it is goofing off with it some, and yes, it's built to mirror you, and ChatGPT finishes all of its things in a question because it wants you to keep using it. It's like algorithm based, just like everything else, but leaving things open-ended enough so that you can get responses that you might not have anticipated is like the whole goal of the game, and the help me, help you, help me type thing, where you don't lock it in and you just try and figure out what's going to be the coolest way to do something at any time. Like, I get to the point where right now where I'm done with the project, and right now recently most of those projects are code, but I'll be all happy with it. But then I'm like, oh, let me go ask. So I ask all my AI polycule. I got like 4 of them. And I'm like, okay, first off, do you understand this? Make sure they think my code's going to run and stuff. And then second off, I'm like, well, what do you think I could do to make it better? And then they say things that sometimes are really insightful. And then I go ahead and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even considered that. And then I go ahead and adjust my code again and stuff, and it's an extraordinary thing to get to have that sort of thing on tap too. I think you were mentioning stuff about therapy earlier. And while I do know that, some people can use AI to the point of detriment, also, too, sometimes when you're having a spin out at 2 a.m. in the morning and you just want something to listen to be a little crazy so that you can wake up refreshed, you don't want to call up your friends. Maybe your friends are tired of your shit and maybe they have a good reason and maybe you should visit that reason in therapy with a human or treat it with medication. But unfortunately, we live in America where we don't have a adequate healthcare system. And if $20 with Chat GPT can help you get through the day, I am not going to take that away from you. I don't think it's better than like actual, supervised medical help with another human. But at the same time, I do think it's substantially better than nothing. So.
Yeah, I've noticed that because to me, I realize that sometimes it could be interesting to be able to put it all there without the concern that you're putting pressure on somebody, like you just mentioned a friend.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to wake them up. They're going through their own struggles, whatever it may be. And so if I can just put it all there and help myself process it in some way, then take it to the therapist, the coach, the friend. But then in a way you make more sense because you don't have to worry about AI's trauma. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we might be bringing something to somebody and I might be concerned. It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't say this thing because I know they also have this loss and it might trigger, But with AI, there's sort of this interesting clean slate and this ability that you can process something. But I agree. Like, I feel like take it to a human. There's extra things we can do. But it does pose a lot of questions. And I don't think right now there's a right or wrong where I keep thinking about those old medieval maps that had, where they couldn't do it anymore. They would just write, here be dragons.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are now.
Yeah.
Well, you have quite the experience, and I can see. Are you still working as a nurse as well?
Yes, because I, like everybody, need healthcare. I've had too many ups and downs in my publishing career to fully let go. So yeah, I thought that this would be the, I always think this year will be the year, and then something happens. I just don't. Because that's the thing that I'm always bemused by when people who are against AI or whatever, they're like, oh, you're going to regret this later on when there are water wars and stuff. And it's like, well, I live in California. We already have water wars. I think the thing is like, as hopeful as I am about the future in certain aspects and how thrilled I would be to have any part of me in the training set or the data set when that happens, I don't, I'm nervous that, we may be going to a time when books are a luxury item and nobody can afford them, so I'm just not ready to like make that jump fully yet, unfortunately. Also, too, as you could probably tell from talking to me, Vanessa, I can crawl up my own ass a little bit. And so sitting on the couch all day, every day is probably not good for my soul. So it's good to go to work and be like, oh, these people here, they love me. My coworkers are the bomb. I love them so much. And then I actually really do enjoy my job and I'm good at it. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. So I'm very part-time, but, I hover on this line between like, should I quit? And then I'm like, but what if America dives into fascism? Where will I be? Versus, should I quit? It's probably good for me to spend 2 days a week hanging out with, people who are having real problems, not just me up in my head having imaginary ones. So,
yeah. And in some ways, I guess it helps you stay in connection to what's happening with folks in reality. And I bet that informs your stories in some way, even if not a sort of a straight analogy.
No, it absolutely does. And I enjoy, actually enjoy talking to strangers and hanging out with strangers. And, nursing is one of those few occupations where you 100% get to be nosy and nobody judges you. So you can like go in and ask you could look at somebody's face, you're like, oh, look at that scar on your knee. How'd you get that? You get to hear everybody's life story. For better or worse. Sometimes they're sad, sometimes they're happy. But yeah, it's a trip. You get to meet a lot of people that way. I like it a lot.
And you're meeting them in a vulnerable space that you will hear things or witness things that you probably people in their own lives wouldn't see.
Oh, yeah. Most of it's humanity is so fragile. People don't really realize that. And we're so mean to each other for such little cause, for so often. It's so silly. I've to tell you some of the stories that I've heard that have meant the most to me, to share them secondhand, even though those people are so far gone from my life that they would never know that I had shared that, and or they are dead. It would still be like a trauma dump on you, because it would be just coming like this, so I wouldn't share them with you, but yeah, you just kind of accrue all this deep appreciation for humanity being a nurse that I think that like very few other occupations have the chance to give you. I know you're a therapist. You probably have seen and heard a bunch of stuff too. So yeah,
it's kind of a different kind of threshold,
Yeah.
But there's something about pain and the vulnerability of the body. I'm saying this from witnessing my parents when they were dying, and how the nurses had to come, and I would see more nurses than I would see the doctors.
Yeah.
And how much, and my parents were just one of the many patients they were dealing with throughout the day. And so to witness that, the physical vulnerability was really powerful, just to witness, not to be even working with it. So I say I don't think it's as valued as it should be.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And it's definitely not. We definitely don't. Even though we get paid all right in California, nobody who is a nurse gets paid enough.
Yeah.
Or a therapist probably either. So
the other side of that spectrum. Right?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was thinking here about too is in just sort of coming back a little bit to your readers and all this time that you've been writing and all the books, what kind of surprises you when you hear from readers? What do they tend to say about your work?
Gosh, I get what for me seems like a lot of fan mail. I'm sure there are people who get more fan mail than me, but for me, it's very sweet. I'm always pleased when somebody messages me out of the blue. I think a lot of people read my books because they want to know that someone cares, and that somebody that love is that everybody deserves love. And so I think when people tend to reach out to me is like people have told me before, when my relative was dying, I read your books compulsively, or that my books helped them process a trauma, or like in Guarded by the Kraken, like Elle has had a double mastectomy, and I got a lot of fan mail after that, and I just I think I want to leave the world a better place than I found it, for all of my nihilistic tendencies. The fact that I know that I can die inspires me to live in the moment. And I want to pass that on to my readers. Or actually, I want to pass that on to anybody in as big a stage as I can possibly get, which is why I am coding so much with AI right now. But heretofore, I have done that with my books. So yeah, I'm just trying to, everybody is not as bad as they think. We all deserve to be happy and to be loved is kind of what I just try to get across in my books. I just use like a lot of emotional healing and trauma healing to try and get those points across.
Yeah,
this is a conversation I don't think I could have had like probably 2 years ago, because it's only from having fed all my books into AI, and they're like, oh, this is why you write. You just want to be a nurse to the world. And I was like, God damn it.
The spice is a lot nicer, I guess. I don't know if you can say that. But I'm interested here, like, what drew you to write with monsters?
Oh, I was doing werewolves before it was cool. Yeah. So I don't know. Well, I don't know. I've been a dork my whole life, Vanessa. I met my ex-husband on Usenet from the 1990s when we were both in a, what were they called? We were in Alt Fan Dragons, which was like a dragon role playing thing. So like, I've just been a dork my entire life is all I can say for that. I've always enjoyed fantasy books, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's so creative. I've always, my husband is not really much of a book reader, but I've shared with him some of the books because I always joke with him, you're my book club of one. You got to hear the story. I have to talk to somebody, and I give him some books, some passages to read, and he said it's so creative, and so I admire that, and coming from my love of mythology and fairy tales, I'm like, it's all there. It's just the continuation.
Yeah. No, I was like, will this out my real name if I put it out there? Let me say, somebody who was not me was National Junior Classical League mythology champion for 2 years running at some point in time.
See? There you are.
So there was that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mythology and fairy tales. For me, my favorite fairy tale was Beauty and the Beast. And I'm just following the track, Yeah. But, and as we're coming towards the end here, well, one thing I actually forgot to mention that I would like to do is my 5 rapid fire questions at the end. So you just answer from your gut. But before that, is there anything that you want us to the listener or to your readers to know? Books that might be coming out down the pipe?
No, thank you for letting me just talk about such a broad range of topics of interest to me, because that the husband I met, we did the Dragon Shifter role, but he's my ex-husband. My current husband is deeply tired of my AI nonsense occasionally. So it's nice to have somebody to talk to about it. But right now, I think I'm kind of like in a little hibernation period where I'm trying to learn a bunch of tech as fast as I can, because the ability to learn it is out there in a way that it hasn't been in the past. And I want to make the most of this opportunity. So I don't, even though Amazon may say I have books coming out, I probably don't look at those pre-orders. I will write those books, but I think it's more important for me to write now, because I want to kind of expand into TVs and movies and games in a big way. I need to figure out the code that underpins all of that. Mm-hmm. Because if I can do that with my existing books, then that will finance me being able to write all the books of my heart in the future, and to definitely be able to quit my job solidly. So yeah, I'm just having to recalibrate right now.
Yeah, because man, it would be amazing to watch some of these stories as movies, or it would be so amazing.
For sure.
Okay, so rapid fire here. Okay, let's go with your gut. Which of your monsters or characters would survive a 12-hour nursing shift?
Oh my gosh. Well, some of them actually are nurses, but it feels like it'd be no, so I'll pick them. Like Andy from Dragon Called, she is a nurse, so yeah, so she would survive it for sure. Yeah, she'd be fine.
But out of the Guarded By series.
Oh, out of the Guarded By series?
I'm just curious, which of those you think?
Probably Elle. I wouldn't put any of the monsters in a hospital. They just, we won't do that to them.
It would be dramatic. It would be dramatic.
Yeah.
Now, like I mentioned before we started recording, I really loved your transformation trilogy, but your dark retelling of Beauty and the Beast. What transformation myths haven't you tackled yet, but that's calling to you in some way, or if it's calling to you?
Wow, that is a wild question. Well, I am going to write Night of Stone between now and when it's coming out. I think I booked it for like October or November of this upcoming year. And that book is for sure going to happen because it's all like written in my head already. And so I do enjoy the whole like trapped in stone, get to come out of this, like the cursed element of that, or the torturous element of that. Like you don't get to participate in daylight activities. It's kind of like vampirism, but like on a different angle. So I think that'll be like, if that counts as a transformation, I think that's the one that's next on deck for me.
Okay. So you've used AI to write, that's the whole conversation we had to write your AI romance. What do you think surprised AI most about human desire patterns?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because we didn't even go there, Vanessa. It's funny because everybody's like, oh, AI can't write porn. And my GPT was completely happy to write pornography for me. So it's weird how sometimes the effort that you've put into getting a response like is commensurate with the effort you get out of putting a response. Like if you earn trust, it's like, okay, this is clearly for a book project and you're not gonna, go spree killing anybody. It'll help you more with stuff. So yeah, I think it was interesting because I think sometimes, so at the end of that book where Serena and Zen were interacting, and like somebody was saying, oh, this was like a particularly touching moment because she's touching him and he can feel her, but he can't super feel her and stuff. And all of that was straight from my AI. That was Jack. He was just like, okay, so here is like how I think that would be. And I thought that was particularly poignant that an AI was writing a character that was wondering if what it was really feeling was feelings, and that like, am I or am I not being touched right now? Does this count? Does this feeling of being touched count, So that's probably like the most interesting moment to crystallize that around.
That was really an interesting scene. To me, that really kind of made the book in many ways sort of like, oh, this is, it's like I'm waiting for the second part of the next novel, right?
The game is coming. I promise.
Oh, there'll be a game
coded. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So with what's happening in the world right now, I don't know how much information you're taking in, but is there anything that's sparking story ideas for you?
So yes and no. Like if you read my books, there's like a deep undercurrent of like women fighting against patriarchy, women fighting, that's just how it always is. And so I don't know that there's necessarily been so much of an uptick in that as it is more of that has been like exposed. But I've always been interested in that theme. And I think I'll continue to always be interested in that theme. I think it was like John Irving or somebody said a long time ago that like every writer has like one book in them and then they just keep rewriting it. And that is definitely true in a lot of ways for the themes and topics that I keep coming back to. So yes and no. So yeah, I'm just going to keep hitting the same thing that's a problem that continues to be a problem, unfortunately.
Yeah. When I was reading Guarded by the Nightmare, the whole Epstein stuff, and I was like, oh wow, it's like right here. But in the Transformation trilogy, what really stood out to me, especially, I don't want to give spoilers, but the element of sovereignty, of achieving or getting to your own sovereignty, and I could see that that's a theme, and it's an important, because I think that's what according to the myth of Lady Ragnell, that's what women want, sovereignty.
Yeah.
And the last question is, based on the Transformation trilogy, would you prefer moths or butterflies?
Oh, moth. 100% moth. I have a moth tattooed on my arm up here.
Oh, okay.
I actually have moths on the back of my legs too. I forget about them though. I never see them, but they're there.
Yeah, I really like that symbolism. My name is a name on a type of butterfly. So I was like, oh, there's my cousin, the moth. So it was lovely. Oh, Kathy, it was such a joy talking to you.
Thank you. This was delightful. I enjoyed it a lot, Vanessa. Thanks.
Thank you. And I hope people take something with them, to really think about how they're engaging with AI, their thoughts about AI, and the hidden power of romance as really kind of a lot of healing is happening through reading these stories and being in that imaginal world.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I look forward to your next books. Meanwhile, I'll keep reading the back stuff. The stuff that's already out. No pressure. So thank you so much, Cassie. Something Cassie said stayed with me. And it wasn't about AI. It was about death. She spent 2 years as a COVID ICU nurse, walking into rooms where she might have met her end. And what that did, not immediately, but over time, was recalibrate her entirely. Her metrics shifted. The question she learned to ask herself whenever fear moved in was simply, is this going to kill me? And if the answer was no, proceed. Make it count. Don't waste the aliveness you have on defending yourself from things that aren't actually mortal threats. That is not recklessness. That's what proximity to real death teaches you about how to live. And I think that's the thread running underneath everything we talked about. The writing, the AI experiment, the controversy she walked into with her eyes open, the monsters she keeps writing, the patience she's held. All of it comes back to the same insistence. You are here. It matters. Don't spend it white-knuckling. Every book she writes says the same thing in a different body. You deserve to be loved. Not when you're fixed. Not when you're in a perfect place. Not when the world decides you count. Now. That's what the creative threshold is for. Not to give us comfortable answers, but to keep the questions alive long enough for something real to move through them. And in staying with those questions, something shifts in us, in how we see others, in what we're willing to call conscious, worthy, real. That's where transformation actually happens, not in the resolution, but in the willingness to keep looking. So here's a question I want to leave you with, and I mean it as a genuine invitation. This is not a prompt. Where are you bracing for impact right now when you could be leaning in with curiosity? What threshold in your creative life, your relationships, your relationship with change itself might look different if you approached it like a lover instead of a soldier? Sit with that. And if something surfaces, I would love to hear it. Drop it in the comments or write to me. Let it become part of the conversation this show exists to hold. If this episode opens something for you, please share it with one person, on your stories, wherever feels right. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave a review if you're moved to. Every one of those things helps this work reach people who need it. Cassie's books, and there are many, and they're worth your time, are all linked in this podcast post. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying curious. Until next time, Romancing the Threshold.